Welcome back this morning. Well, now that Spirit Airlines just shut down, it says the bulk of its customers who bought tickets directly from them have their refunds processed already. But a lot of questions remain about the thousands of people who bought a ticket through maybe third-party sites or using their points or miles, along with even more questions about what the airline's collapse means for the airline industry and for you at home, your ticket prices, especially as you plan summer travel. We're, of course, always investigating, so we decided to reach out to a travel expert, Clint Henderson. Good morning, Clint. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on.
So since Spirit shut down, some other airlines we've seen step up, like United is offering their so-called rescue fares to the stranded Spirit passengers. But what should people know who haven't gotten their money back yet if they already had a trip booked?
Yeah, so the first thing is one of our readers at the Points Guy actually created a website called Stuck on Spirit where you can type in what Spirit flight you were going to fly. It'll tell you your options, which has been a very convenient tool for some readers. I would say Spirit has been processing refunds both to debit cards and credit cards. That's great news. We didn't think that they were going to be paying consumers back. So that's a bit of good news. But consumers, if they don't get paid back, and some of our staff at the Points Guy actually did charges to see if they would get reversed, and they have not been reversed yet. So if it goes on a couple more weeks, you don't get reimbursed by Spirit, call your credit card company, ask for a chargeback on your credit card because they will do that since you didn't get your terms of contract. As far as these rescue flights, really admire that the airlines are offering discounted fares for some of these passengers. Unfortunately, there's still a lot more expensive than what most Spirit passengers paid. And so just sort of know that going in here. And I'm worried long term about the death of Spirit, what it means for fares across the board. We're already seeing fare increases between 10 and 30% because of jet fuel prices. Whenever a low-cost carrier leaves a market, then prices go up across the board. So that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah,
we were thinking about that when it comes to, experts had said that because Spirit was a budget airline, it's historically forced these other legacy airlines to kind of be competitive with their pricing. But now you got all these people that were going to fly Spirit jump into them and they can set the price that they want, right?
Yeah, in fact, we saw Spirit pull out of the Minneapolis market, and guess what happened almost immediately? Fares went up about 50% because Delta Airlines has a lock on that market without a low-cost competitor. And so that's what I'm worried about happening at some of the other airports that Spirit flies to. Though I will say JetBlue and another startup airline called Breeze, they've added some of those flights that Spirit was running. So hopefully that will help a little bit. But remember, bag fees are up. Fares are up because of jet fuel costs. And now the airlines are all reducing capacity, and that means fewer seats for the same amount of customers, and that means higher prices. So unfortunately, it's going to be an expensive summer for travelers.
Yeah, even today we were just talking about, Delta cutting the snacks and drinks. I mean, they just keep cutting, but we're paying more. When it comes to basic supply and demand, though, we touched on this a little bit, but what do you think that Spirit's just collapse means for the future of air travel, especially as these jet fuel costs remain so high? And even if the strait is open again and those costs come down, airlines say they still expect to keep their prices higher.
Yeah, both Delta and United have said they're going to try to leave fares as high as they've been, and they're already up some 20%. So it's getting more expensive to travel. That said, I work at the Points Guy. There are plenty of ways to still save some money. You can use your points and miles for sure. When cash prices are high, you're going to get the best value. But use tools like Google Flights Explore. If you just put a little flexibility into your tickets, you can get some really good deals still. Airline vacation packages can be a good way to save some money. But as far as your question goes, yes, we're looking at fares increasing across the board. And even if they open the Strait of Hormuz magically between now and when you fly, your ticket price is likely not to come down. Now, one other bright spot, there are these new AI tracking tools that will monitor your flights and issue you automatic trip credits as long as you didn't book basic economy. So we got to use these new tools against the airlines as they continue to hike fares.
Absolutely. We need everything in our toolbox. Clint Henderson with the Points Guy, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your insight and also your tips. Thank you.
Good to see you.